Welcome to another episode of our podcast where we dive deep into the politics behind policy and the numbers behind the headlines. Today, we are talking about Bangladesh's much celebrated trade breakthrough with the United States. The retaliatory tariff on Bangladeshi exports, especially garments, has been sliced from 35% to 20%. Chief Advisor Dr. Mohammad Yunus called it a historic diplomatic success, but is it really that simple? Behind the trade relief lies a complex story of quiet concessions, unspoken clauses, and most importantly, what it all means for the food on the table for millions of Bangladeshis. At a time when the country ranks among the top five globally in acute food insecurity, can we afford to ignore the trade offs in the deal? Let's unpack the full picture exports, food security, foreign commitments, and the quiet costs of compromise. The announcement that the US has reduced its retaliatory tariff on Bangladeshi exports from 35% to 20% brought a wave of relief to the country's ready made garments RMG sector. On paper, it looks like a diplomatic victory, praised as historic by Chief Advisor Dr. Mohammad Yunus himself. Order cancellations are being reversed, buyers are returning to the table, and industry leaders are cautiously optimistic. But behind the smiles lies an uncomfortable truth. What are we giving up in return? And what does this mean for food prices, national import bills, and the millions who still go to bed hungry? The latest global report on food crisis 2025, along with a companion study by the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization FAO, places Bangladesh in a troubling light. Among the 53 food crisis affected countries, Bangladesh ranks fourth in the world in terms of the total number of people facing acute food insecurity, surpassed only by Nigeria, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Close to 77 million Bangladeshis, over 44% of the population, do not have access to healthy or nutritious food, despite improvements from 2017's 65.7%. Over 10% of the population remains undernourished, and among children under 5, 10% are underweight and 25% are stunned. These numbers are not abstract. They live in every compromised meal, every malnourished child, every empty rice bowl. This is why the much celebrated tariff relief must be viewed in a broader context. Yes, the 20% rate keeps Bangladesh a more competitive footing compared to India 25% and even China is still facing 30% tariffs. But at what cost? In exchange for this relief, Bangladesh has committed to major purchases from the United States. 25 Boeing aircraft, wheat, LNG, soybeans, cotton, pulses, and infrastructure deals, among others. Some of these imports, like wheat and LNG, are essential, but others, like large aircraft purchases, may not be timely or fiscally wise. More importantly, sourcing these items from the US rather than cheaper alternatives such as Ukraine for wheat or the Middle East for energy could push up the national import bill and strain foreign reserves. In a country where food inflation directly impacts child nutrition and household survival, such trade offs aren't just economic, they are existential. Add to this the less discussed but significant transshipment tariff clause in the new US framework. If raw materials are imported from countries with higher tariffs, Bangladesh may face up to 40% tariffs when exporting finished goods to the United States. That threatens open governments sectors reliant on Chinese or Indian imports. Unless alternative sourcing is arranged or raw materials are imported from the US, the tariff relief may be neutralized down the line. Knitwear units with the domestic value addition may survive better, but that's not the majority. And what happens when US buyers share the tariff burden partially with Bangladeshi exporters? Profit margins shrink, small and medium factories suffer, wages get squeezed. Eventually, that trickles down to reduced food affordability, especially among RMG workers, the very people behind the export growth we are trying to protect. From the FAO reports become even more urgent. Bangladesh isn't just battling a price hike, it's facing structural food insecurity. Over 7 crore people in this country cannot afford a nutritious diet. Among South Asian nations, Bangladesh ranks second only to Pakistan in terms of dietary inadequacy and third after India and Pakistan in child malnutrition rates. These are not just rankings, they are warnings. To call this a diplomatic victory while sidelining the cost of food security, public health, and national policy autonomy would be short sighted. Instead, Bangladesh must use the moment as a breathing space, a window to act. First, the full text of the US trade deal should be disclosed. Non disclosure clauses may be legally valid, but politically people deserve to know what was traded away in the name. Transparency creates trust and helps businesses plan better. Second, Bangladesh should adopt a food first import principle. Essential food and nutrition related imports, grains, pulses, oil, medicines must be prioritized in import clearances and exchange rate protections. If concessional deals from non US sources are cheaper, let them in. Fiscal discipline starts with smart sourcing. Third, maintain strategic food reserves and expand targeted support programs. School meals, maternal nutrition, and child feeding initiatives. These programs have the highest return on investment during inflationary shocks. Let's make them national priorities, not donor dependent experiments. Fourth, invest in domestic agriculture, agricultural efficiency, especially in irrigation, cold storage, and rural transport. Post harvest losses cost up to 15% of crops, fixing that saves more than any import deal. Fifth, in the case of forex pressure, set clear LC privatization. No going before rise. The state's role is to protect the its people plate, not just its trade index. And finally, we must rethink the narrowness of our export basket. Over reliance on garments is what pushed us into this fragile position. Diversification into pharmaceuticals, IT, digital services is not a luxury, it's survival. For now, yes, the tariff cut to 20% is a relief, but the reports tell us this is no time for complacency. Without systematic reform or and protection of essential sectors, Bangladesh could win the export war but lose the nutritional battle. We are told this is a historic achievement, perhaps, but let history also remember whether we protected the poor, fed our children, and choose wisely when trade offs started us in the face. Only then will this be more than a headline. Only then will historic success mean something real. So, yes, Bangladesh has brought some breathing space. The tariff rate may help the R&D sector stay afloat, at least for now, but the question remains who really pays for that relief? Is it the government that signs the aircraft deal or the factory owner adjusting his margins? Or is it the mother in rural Bangladesh who has to stretch a cup of lentils over 5 mouths? Trade deals, especially with powerful partners, are never just about economics. They are about values, priorities, and whose interests come first when choices get hard. As we move forward, let's hope Bangladesh doesn't just win at the negotiation table but also protects the plates at home. Thanks for listening. If you found this conversation thought provoking, share it, rate us, and stay tuned for the next episode where we ask the questions others won't. Until then, take care and keep thinking deeper.